Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're actually doing something a little bit different and honestly, a ton of fun. We're stepping completely out of our usual data sets to dive into a piece of music, specifically an awesome track written by Coach Lok called The Gold Standard Way. This song is just a fantastic look at leadership, coaching, and life in general, all wrapped up in a seriously catchy beat. We're going to break down the lyrics verse by verse, dig into the core philosophies, and just have a little fun figuring out what makes this track work so well. All right, let's get right into it. Right out of the gate, the opening hook paints this incredibly vivid picture. Coach Lok sings, "Maybe you coach where the sun kissed the field, with a whistle round your neck and a heart never sealed. On the hardwood floor or the pitcher's mound, creating leaders when no one is around." It just instantly immerses you, you know? What I absolutely love here is how it immediately establishes the everyday boots-on-the-ground reality of a dedicated coach. Look, it doesn't matter if you're standing on a glamorous stadium turf or a dusty local baseball diamond. If you've got that whistle around your neck and your heart is wide open to those kids, you're right there in the trenches creating leaders. It sets the absolute perfect tone for everything that comes next. So here's our set list for today's musical journey. We'll start with setting the gold standard, then move into toughness, resilience, and grit. After that, we'll look at how life is bigger than the game, figure out what is important now, and finally wrap up with a legacy that remains. Okay, let's cue up track 1, Setting the Gold Standard. This, right here, is where the song really finds its rhythm. It establishes the core philosophy of what it means to be a true leader, and honestly, not just in sports, but in literally any mentorship role. Let's really look at this verse. Teach him to believe, to lead, to play, and to love the game in an honest way. Now, the contrast in the very next two lines is what gets me. No need to preach, just live it loud. Quiet strength in a world that's proud. That juxtaposition, absolutely brilliant. Living it loud doesn't mean you're out there literally yelling or giving these long, preachy speeches. It means your actions speak volumes. It's all about modeling the behavior. You know, in a world where everyone is shouting for attention and frankly being overly proud, demonstrating quiet strength is actually the loudest, most impactful way you can possibly lead. Moving right along to our second track, Toughness, Resilience, and Grit. Okay, so this is where the song drops its first major acronym. Build toughness, resilience, and grit. Be all in and don't ever quit, TRG. I mean, you have to admit, that cadence absolutely sticks in your head for days. It is so catchy. But way beyond just being an earworm, it's packing a massive developmental punch. Coach Lok is literally giving us the exact recipe for a bulletproof mindset here. So what does TRG actually look like in practice? Well, the lyrics go on to explain that it's fundamentally about earning trust and showing grace. Because confidence isn't magic, right? It's something that gets built brick by brick. And the ultimate trick to unlocking all that toughness, resilience, and grit? It's being coachable. The song literally says, being coachable, baby, that's the trick. Because if you're genuinely open to learning and open to correction, that's when you actually build those foundational TRG traits. All right, section 3, life bigger than the game. The song transitions so beautifully here. It pivots entirely away from the physical mechanics of the sport, the hardwood floor, the pitcher's mound, and just steps straight into pure, unfiltered life lessons. This is really the soulful bridge of the anthem. Better people make the best players. And then he drops this incredibly poetic line, "Love is one of the best game sabers." What a powerful reminder that leaders are called to serve, to stand tall, and most importantly, to be ready to rise when others fall. It completely reframes the whole purpose of coaching. You aren't just drafting an athlete, you are literally shaping a human being. And this right here perfectly illustrates that exact shift in perspective. On one side, you have the traditional view of the game. You're focusing on wins, raw skill, just a name on a jersey. But then that's weighed heavily against the enduring value of life lessons. We're talking character, culture, and actually building better people. Because let's face it, the temporary thrill of winning a single game, that fades pretty quickly. But a strong, resilient culture, that sticks with an athlete for the rest of their life.
Which brings us to track 4, what is important now?
Now, this section is all about the practical, day-to-day execution of that gold standard. It's essentially the game plan for how leaders should actually communicate with their team in the heat of the moment. And the absolutely crucial point is right here in these lyrics. Fill emotional banks with what you say. That simply means your words matter a lot. Then he says, tell them the why and not just how. You'll always get what you allow. I am obsessed with that line. Think about it. If you just bark orders, the how, you might get compliance. But if you take the time to explain the why, you get actual buy-in. And as a leader, it is so true. You will always get exactly what you tolerate or allow. To make this super practical, Coach Logue actually breaks this down into actionable steps to build up a player's resilience. Step 1, you have to fill those emotional banks. You've got to make sure your team genuinely feels valued before you start critiquing them. Step 2, flush mistakes. Just let them go. Move on to the next play, the next day, without dwelling on the errors of the past. And finally, step 3, care, think, and try, which is really all about putting your whole heart and your whole mind into the effort.
Okay, so this all leads us to the absolute climax of the song. The beat is building, the momentum is totally at its peak, and Coach Logue poses the ultimate question. And how do you win?
What's important now? What's important right now? It's such an epic hook. WIN. It stands for focusing entirely on the present moment. Not that silly mistake you made 5 minutes ago, not the shiny trophy at the end of the season, but the very next step right in front of you. That is how you win. All right, deep breath as we move into our final section, a legacy that remains. As we kind of catch our breath from that awesome chorus, the pace of the song starts to mellow out here in the outro. And this is where Coach Logue speaks incredibly directly to all the coaches and leaders out there listening. These lyrics carry such a heavy but deeply inspiring truth. The ball stops bouncing, you might stop coaching, but you're not gone. Because the reality is, every single athlete eventually plays their final game, right? The physical act of playing sports definitely has an expiration date, but the impact of a truly good coach, that vastly, vastly outlasts their time on the hardwood or the field. The lessons, they really do just keep going. So the huge takeaway here is crystal clear. Your impact is no joke. Coach Logue talks about how one day the grandkids will laugh and that passion will still burn brightly. He reminds us to keep our friends and our family right by our side, with love always lighting the track. Because when you choose to lead with love and with character, your legacy keeps coming right back to you. The game itself might eventually end, but that gold standard song, it just goes on and on. And that brings us to the song's final, incredibly powerful sign-off. As the beat slowly fades out, we are left with a simple, resounding command. Stay gold. Be great. I'm telling you, it's virtually impossible not to walk away from this track feeling a little more motivated and definitely a lot more mindful of exactly how we treat the people we're leading. It really is just an incredible anthem. So we want to leave you with this final big thought today. As the song so perfectly reminds us, the ball eventually stops bouncing for everyone. So what legacy are you building right now that will go on and on? Whether you're a coach, a manager, a parent, or even just a good friend, how are you setting the gold standard today? Think about that as you go through your week. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.